Okay, it's January 2013, and I'm just creating some Moodle shells from scratch. Or rather, I'm populating some Moodle shells from scratch, and I thought it'd be a good time to do some new recordings. This is Moodle 2.2, and I wish we were on 2.3, but we're not. And because I've been using Moodle since version 1.0 or 1.1, my fear is that the junk is kind of like when you make too many photocopies over the years that things start going wrong. In particular, there's a block I wanted to have called Grade Me, which was not working with older assignments. So I thought rather than copy all those years and years of work and all the legacy files and things that maybe I wasn't using were corrupted or what have you, I'd start from scratch. So here is a blank class. I've just gone in for the very first time. You see it's weekly. It's got 10 weeks on kind of by default. It's got its default blocks. So what I'm going to do actually is turn editing on and go down to the baseline and just hide all of these blocks one at a time. So I've got really nothing, and then I'll add others later that as I want them. Well, that's a shocker. This block does not exist on this page. Okay, I can't get rid of these blocks. I can kind of collapse them or dock them off on the side. For now, I'm not going to worry about that. Now, as always, we go to the course settings. Before I do the course settings, it might be good to put a title on this course. So what I'm going to actually do is, I can see here this is 2013 Spring Web 115. So I'm going to go to our school schedule and do a search on that class. And here's the description of it. So I'm going to copy that information and jump back, and before I do that, I'll make a note: Web 115 Web Markup and Scripting. I'm going to go ahead and edit the title, and this is the summary. So default section name no, and the section name is going to be Web. Actually, this is a new one for block 0. So Web Markup and Scripting. I like ampersands. I'm not sure where this shows up, so I'm going to try it. And it goes there. So the problem is it goes under the weekly outline. This is a total. I kind of want it here. So what I'm going to do is go back, use default. I'm going to write it here, Web 115, Markup, and Scripting. And then just to be clear what we're teaching here, I'm going to put JavaScript. And I'm going to go ahead and make that all a heading 1, because the first most important thing on the page. I'm going to pick a font that's a little bit more interesting, like Trebuchet. No, let's do Georgia. And I'm going to stylize it by putting a tilde in front and after it, and go ahead and pick one of my favorite shades of blue, which is going to be somewhere like so. And then I will center it. So now I save this, and it shows up on the page like that. Now I'm viewing this at 1024 for recording purposes. At home, a lot of people have much wider monitors. However, I'm finding that text is still a little heavy or overbearing, so I could change it to H2, or I could change the font. So let's see what happens with the font. Go to Tahoma or Times New Roman, a little bit better. Sometimes the good old standby is nice, so we leave that there. Now I'm going to go into the settings and edit settings and leave all this alone, and I want to take that stuff that I pasted, Web Markup and Scripting there, and I notice I don't have my editing tools here, so I'm going to go ahead and use some HTML and see what happens. See what happens to it. Actually, I'll make that an H3, and I don't really know how this is going to render, and we'll go ahead and give it a try, or maybe I can go, let's see, HTML format there. I think that I'm going to organize this class around topics. So I'm going to go ahead and pick topics, and to be safe, I'm going to put us up at about 12, because I normally will have 8. And the start date doesn't matter so much because I'm using topics. If I were using weeks, it would matter. Hidden sections are shown collapsed or completely invisible. For now, I'll leave it at collapsed. News item, I'm going to do 3. Show gradebook, yes. Show activity reports, maximum upload. Don't need to worry about any of that. And course is not available, will be turned on later on. And student progress, I'll make that enabled completion tracking begins on enrollment, and then I think we are good. I have show advanced here. I don't think we care about any of that, and I will save changes. And so now I've got that little bit set up here. I could go add a block that describes the course. So I look for the block that says, let's see, where is it? Course information, I believe it's called. Course site description, right? And that puts the block there. So I may just want to have that there for the first couple of days, but I would remove it later. I don't want to put a picture up here unless it's small and will fit nicely, so I'm not even going to worry about that for now. But one thing I want to do now is put in all the dates, and this is a little bit tricky because I like the weekly layout. I just don't particularly like the not being able to compress them into modules. So I need to decide how I want a module to be structured. And if I look at the calendar, what I'm going to do is actually jump to a different course to show how that might look. I will go over to another course here. I'll hold the control key to open that in a new window. And, oops, that's not the one I wanted. I'll go to one I've been messing around with already. And I'll go to the settings on that course and change that to a weekly layout with 20 weeks. Really wish they would update the navigation to make this a little more seamless. And here you can see I have all these dates. Notice this one is overridden by some text that I put in, whereas these are the defaults. So I could actually take all these dates once I have this set up the way I want. And what I'll need to decide is what I want the first day to be, and what I want the last day to be, and what I want the due dates to be, and that sort of thing. So our classes this semester start on a Thursday, which is the 10th. And I'm kind of torn because it seems natural to me that a week should be Sunday through Saturday, but that doesn't really align very well with academics, so maybe the week will go Monday through Sunday night, and then I'll have a grace period. So if I do that, I'm going to go to the settings for this course, and Monday of this week would have been the 7th. So I'll put the classes starting on the 7th of January, and I'll change this setting, so I'll use the default section name. And I know I'm going quickly. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you know a little bit about Moodle. If not, you can always pause it and kind of reanalyze what I'm doing. So now I have all my dates in one place, January 7th through the 13th. And then January 14th through the 20th. So I can actually copy that and make a mental note that I want the 7th through the 20th for Unit 1. So I'll go up here and I'll edit this, and I will take off the default section name and paste that and change that to 7th through the 20th, and I'll actually write Unit 1. And then I'll put something like that. So you have to come up with the formatting you like and save it, and then it'll look something like that. Now you may not like that. It may be cleaner to, for example, abbreviate the month and make it small, right? Or even reverse it. So we go 7 January through 20 January, or even 7 through 20, right? So there are lots of ways to do that. And I may go here and say Unit 1, colon, getting started, 7 through 20 January, right? And then I'll worry about the rest of that later and save changes. And now that's at the top. Notice I could also do this here. I'll show you what that would look like. If I put the exact same information here, which is where you might want to put a paragraph or other information, notice how it looks. Unformatted. I could alternatively go in there, and this is what I used to always do. I'll format that as, say, a heading 2, and save it. And notice then I have a bigger format, but I still need to put colors and things. When you do it up at the top there, it automatically formats it from the theme of your website's design, so it saves you a little bit of a trouble. So what I'm really trying to do here is hybridize the idea of having a title and having using sort of the built-in dates. Unfortunately, it is some manual work, but if I do it manually now and take 10-20 minutes to do it, it's done for the semester and it looks just the way I want, which is important because, hey, that's the way I want it. So I'm going to remove that stuff and save the changes. So basically my intention is to have 8 units, each unit being 2 weeks, and put a bunch of assignments under there. There are a couple other things I always want to do with a course. The news forum I don't want here at the top. I want it at the very bottom. So if I have 8 units, that'll be down, say, in 9. And I also want a couple of other forums. So first thing I'm going to do is rename the news forum. And I'm going to call it Web 115. I'm going to call it Course News or Course Announcements. It's really a one-way communication about this course. Right, now there's other information I would normally add to this. What I'll do is actually look at a place where I've got a bunch of information, tropicalteachers.com/web110, and I'll put information about the course notes. I'll do a search on announcements. Forum instructions. So I've got these notes here. And you can always go to Tropical Teachers and find that if you want. So this I use many times. Moodle almost for subscription. I want everyone to get it. Read tracking in my mind should always be on. It's one of the bugs I've had. Maybe it'll get better if I don't have it here. I don't usually do attachments, so I'm not worried about that. And there are no ratings because it's one way. And there's no completion because you never really finish it. And there's going to be more assignments constantly. So now I'll save and display, see how that looks. And that's what it looks like. I don't like the centering, so I have to go in and edit that. And so I go in there and let's see, I'm not sure why I'm not getting the tools here for that, but that's something I may need to open it up in Firefox or something like that, because I should have a tool here, and it may even be that I've got some kind of thing turned off now. I'll know when I look at other forums. One way to test that is I could go in and make an announcement and see if I have my editing tools. And I have those tools here, so for some reason they're not showing up there, and I'll have to troubleshoot that later. But I don't think it's a good idea to have those things centered. It just looks sloppy. And you notice here it just when I change the formatting, oh, now we have our formats. Lovely. So I'll go there and format it a little bit more nicely. And I could call it news and announcements or just course announcements. So I'm going to go ahead and be news and announcements with the ampersand. And later on when I set up a filter in my email, that might be a word I'd want to exclude. So now I have that form here. And then also what I'm going to do is make a new forum. And it's going to be class discussion. And standard form, it's going to be a standard forum for general use. I'll take my instructions for that and put all my information there. So it helps to have this stuff accessible, and to avoid the same problem, I'm going to go ahead and left center and then left justify. And I'm going to make that into a heading 3. And it's not Web 110, so I'll make it generic, and so on and so forth. and I may want to check the instructions. And so then I'll leave that again, auto subscription. Actually, I'm going to do force subscription. I want them to get that in their inbox. Again, tracking is on, and I'll allow attachments. Nobody's really abused that yet. And later on when I set up categories, I'll probably put that in participation. In ratings, in this case, I want it to sum the ratings, so maybe one post is 3 points and one is 1, and it adds up. And I'll start out with maybe 20, although students will go much higher, but that way my drop down's not as big. And then I proceed and don't do any completion. Save and display. And now I have notes here, so they have to read all that. I'll go back home. And now I've got these two together. I'll indent one. And then finally I'll create the social forum. Now the social forum is almost the same as the class discussion, so what I'm going to do is duplicate it. I love the fact that they brought this tool back after 8 years or so. Don't know why they ask you if you want to duplicate, and then why they ask you if you want to edit, because those should both say yes. Otherwise I wouldn't have hit the button. But that's just the way it goes, right? And now I'm going to edit the new copy. And I'm going to paste my instructions about the social forum. And in this case, paste those there. And again, standard, it's a class social forum. And sometimes nice to put a coffee cup icon or something. Not forced, it's going to be auto subscription. If you write to it, you'll be subscribed. I do want to, well, I don't want to check that. That'll take up too much space. Read tracking is on, as always. You can attach. Someone wants to attach a joke or a funny picture. I'm going to go ahead and put ratings there. I'll leave it at 20 just to be consistent. Those are going to be extra credit later on. And then I go to the rest, save and display. Make sure it looks good. Again, notice it messed up the alignment. So I'm going to go back and edit. And I'll highlight that, Control A, center and left. And then save and display. That's just a bug of the way our theme is set up. And now we have this set up. And now I'm starting to see things take form. Now you say, what is all this? Why is this stuff down here? Well, what I do in my courses is I don't like to use real estate at the top of the course because it forces students to scroll down. And if you have a lot of stuff, that's a lot of scrolling. You have to scroll every time. Sorry. This top section is always visible. You can't collapse it. So say they're working on section 7, they have to keep scrolling down. Whereas this way, it's at the bottom and they can always get to it. So how do they get to it? I'm also notice the question is, the answer is pretty simple. We add a block called an HTML block. And I call this something like commonly used resources, right? So, or common content, or regular resources. So I have to decide in my mind what I really want to call it. And common content, or course content, or regular, so let's see it, common content. And then I add links to those things. So announcements, discussion, social forum, participants, gradebook. What are the other things they might want to go to a lot? There's several others. Lynda.com, Codecademy, because I know we'll be using these. So I'm going to take all these and using the Shift-Enter make them use less space. Which I should have done in the first place. And it may make sense to break them out. So I'll show you a class I had before. I'll go to an older one, which is my fall Web 110. And you see over, I called it course links. and add all these things: news and announcements, class conversation, social forum, participants, gradebook, and then all forums. So I think I actually kind of like that design, so I'm going to copy that. And what I have to remember is that all of these links are bad because they're specific to that course. Now you may be asking, why am I not migrating? I'm not migrating because at the moment we don't trust the migration, and it will not necessarily fix the link. So at the moment, any link that links within the course is actually broken, and I have to fix it. So the prudent thing to do is actually break these links. Let's see, like so, because each of these has to be linked manually. And this way, when I copy the course to lots of other places, I won't be copying a corruption. Same thing as all these other things. The course site will vary depending on it. The opera course is an absolute link outside of here, so I may leave that. Office hours may actually link to my profile, so I'm going to leave that there, as well as the instructor site and Code Academy. The recorded lectures, I'll need to check, so I'm going to break that. And then these others, W3 schools and so on and so forth, that all stays the same. So that's good, that saves me some trouble. And I display it on any type of main course page. And the default region is going to be the left, and the default weight is 1, and it is visible. And again on the left, weight 1, and I save changes. And now what we have on the main page is we have this menu. So what we have to do is we have to go get the address of each of these things. So I'm going to right click, copy the link address, and then go edit news and announcements. Now there's a way to do this with 2 windows that's a little more efficient. So I'll copy that, paste, and then I have to decide, do I want in this window frame or in a new window? And it's a good question. I think I'll just leave it in this window. So what I'm going to do for editing purposes is actually open another window here and go down, and then I can get these one at a time. So copy link address, class discussion, go to class conversation, copy the link, insert, go back, class social forum, copy link address, go back, social forum, whoops, link tool, and notice I said I was going to do this later and I actually didn't, so I have to remember to fix them if I migrate this. Now I go back, and participants are typically listed under navigation, I think. So I'm in this course and there's participants, so copy that link, highlight it. That's a good one to give people right away. And then the gradebook, the same thing. I'll go to the gradebook, which is under the settings, copy that address and do that. And then finally, all forums you can do by simply going to any one forum, which would be here, and then clicking the forum, going into that one, and where is it? Oh, tricky. At the top, the URL, I just get forum, and it says general forums here, but the others are not showing up. So that's a new one I haven't run into. So what I'm going to do is actually go back and see why I don't see those other forums. And I'll try class social forum. And again, that's under a topic which I don't like. So what I'm going to do is add a block that's called go back to the main page and add the activities block, which shows a link to all forums. I can look at that link to be safe, and it shows all my forums. And I could actually have copied this one to make those general forums instead of learning forums. I don't think there would be any meaningful difference other than the way it's categorized. So it might make sense to do that. I'm going to copy the URL of that and now copy that into all forums. and now I insert that. And so now we have all of those things. I still need to come back and link some of those other things, but now we start getting a good idea of how this works. Save the changes, and you can see how I can very nicely and easily go to my news and announcements. Bam, right? In this case, I realize that I want to format it a little more nicely, right? So I'm going to put course news and announcements and make that a heading 3 like we did on the other pages. So it's good to use the built-in formatting consistently. And I'll save and display. And I can check the other ones. And notice that you don't see that HTML block. So I'm going to go back to there. And I'm going to edit the HTML block. And put any type of course main page. I'm going to put on any course page. And save the changes. So now when I go into, say, the class conversation, the common content menu should be on the left. Now the fact that I don't see it bugs me. So I'm going to go back and see if this setting, maybe instead of any course page, I have to put any page, right? The risk there is it'll show up in the quizzes or something, so it's not entirely intuitive how that works. We'll go to class conversation, and sure enough, these menus stay there. I go to the social forum, good. I go to participants, good. Go to class conversation, good. Now, there's an argument to be made that this is too much stuff right here, right? So what I actually would prefer to do is have these on a website and simply provide a link, because nobody's going to read through this, and they're going to have to see this every time to see the discussions down here. So I'll probably do that in the future. For those of you who want everything in your course, what I would recommend is doing what I'm about to do here, which is turn this into another resource. We're going to copy this, go home, and add a resource, and I'm going to call it a page, and instructions for class discussion forum. And I'm going to paste that here, and whoops, I pasted it in the wrong place. I'm going to paste it here, and usually here I just duplicate under the description. I duplicate that, and we say display page name, sure, not the description, and then everything else, this is something I want them to read, so I will say students can manually mark the activity after they viewed it, right? And save and display. So now we have these instructions, and what I'll do is I'll copy that address and go into class conversation, edit it, and make a link. And just in case they're a little thick, say click for instructions. And then we're going to create a link. So this is basically an internal link, which hopefully in the future we'll copy with it. And then I get rid of all this other stuff, right? Again, this is the advantage of having it on a separate website. It would just be a link to that. So now I can, this is what the students will see, and they can immediately see posts under here without a lot of scrolling. So I'd like to even simplify that a little bit more. And I'll do it like that. Save and display. And now we've got that. So we're now starting to see the beginnings of a shell. We see our course title. We've got Unit 1 set up. We may have a bunch of instructions and things we want to read. Let me add a note about the syllabus. The syllabus is going to be a page that I insert here. I'm going to copy and paste from a Word document. I don't like Word, but that's how the school does it. And I'm going to put a link here, or I may actually move that link down to the bottom, down by Common Resources. And then up here I can just make a link to it, because I'm already going to have a link here on the left as well. So I want them to read it, but at the same time I want them to know that it's always at the bottom. I don't want to use up space in this area. We call this Module 0. Let me turn editing off. So this is how the course is looking. Anything you put up here is going to force the student to scroll down every single time the page loads. And I've watched students over many years, and they're constantly scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. Don't make them do that. There's just no need for it. This way they can just jump right down to the common content. You can even make a link here that jumps. So if we were to go to here and just show that section, you can see up in the URL that it's end topic 9 if you really wanted to get fancy. But for now, this way works fine. And I really haven't seen many teachers using the HTML block this way. I encourage you to, and if you think there's a good reason not to, let me know. Also, I'm going to go ahead and turn off completion to get rid of these checkboxes, because I don't think that they serve a purpose in something that's ongoing through the whole course. So I'll go in there, and there's an option here that says students can manually mark, and I say do not indicate. Save and return to course. Notice it goes away. I do that on this other one. Save and return to course. And let's see. We are do not indicate. So now we've got the beginning of the shell. Hopefully you can extrapolate from this how we can begin to populate. And this framework should work for pretty much any class. There's a lot of other blocks I've added. There's a lot of tutorials I've done in the past, and I explain each one. I'm afraid my voice is a little bit under. This is a really long video, way too long to make it fun to watch, and I sound awfully boring. But I'm not actually like this most of the time. Those of you who know me know I can be fun, I can be exciting, but it takes a lot of time to make something much shorter, and you wouldn't be able to follow. So hopefully this is useful, especially to those of you new instructors who maybe have to set something up from scratch. I've got to do this for 5 courses, so I'm going to get one shell done really nicely, and then copy it those 5 times, and then I'll have to go in and change all those links and change the title. So that could take several hours of work, but in doing so I reinforce the procedures. It's a little bit different now in 2.2 than it was in 1.9, and you really want to get to the point where you don't, it's just like all the other grunt work as teachers we have to do. Not that big a deal, you just knock it out. So thanks for watching if you've watched all the way through.